So who is or was Lilith? Lilith is a myth to some, a legend to others. To some, she is a goddess and a guide and a benevolent being. To other religious folks, she can be seen as a she-demon, or a creature of the night, which we as initiated women on the priestess path know, or hopefully will learn to know, that whenever we hear night, she of the night, she of the evening, any kind of night or lunar reference, a lot of times this is a reference to the feminine path of the divine, the feminine knowing path. And so it makes sense to me that whoever Lilith was, she was demonized. She was seen and taken to represent a literal demon in a lot of religious texts, if they acknowledge her at all, right? And so as we're reclaiming her story, Lilith's story, but also history, her story, through the lens of our feminine knowing, of our womb knowing, as we're looking at the pieces that have been passed down, and we're kind of looking at them through this discerning lens of like, okay, that's what religion says, that's what you say, but what do I see when I look at these fragmented pieces of Lilith's story? And based off of what I know society to be, based off of the patterns that I see in humanity and humanity's history, and what I know like deep in my bones, deep in the wisdom of my womb knowing, how do we kind of sift through these pieces and put a coherent story back together that I think represents, may represent her story better, but more than anything, this archetypal story of women that she represents. And so to me, as I look at these pieces that I've sifted through and I have intuitively felt into of Lilith, I see her as the sovereign queen of knowing what is correct and true for her, even when God or authority disagree. Now, I have been sitting in deep reflection and kind of like intuitive oracling for the past few weeks. I've like seen YouTube snippets of like Navajo tradition teachings where they teach of this force, this like evil force in the human world, where women in this Navajo tradition actually have the foresight to be able to see the evil for what it is and have the warrior spirit to actually fight this deceiving or evil force, and are actually given warrior names based off of this innate ability that females have, that women have. And I've been sitting with this, right? Because this is something that I have struggled with. My intuition knowing something, but people around me that I love, that I trust, that I honor, that I admire, basically telling me that I'm wrong and telling me I don't see what I see, or that I'm seeing incorrectly. But this niggling feeling inside of me is like, no, I don't. I'm okay with being wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong in this instance. And I have had really big, challenging initiations this year in having to trust myself over what someone else is telling me, even when it's someone I love. It's been 3 times where someone has told me something and I have heard or felt underneath their words that there was a different intention, there was a different agenda, there was their energy and their words weren't matching. So they were saying that they were wanting me to do something for a certain reason, but I was hearing underneath their words, I was like, actually, I don't think that's coming from your soul. I think that's coming from your ego. It's not something I think, it's something I feel. And I don't want to listen. I don't want to have your ego guide my life, right? And I don't want my ego to guide my life. And I certainly don't want other people's egos to be the guiding light, quote unquote, in my life. And that's been really hard for me at times because I've always wanted to be seen as the good girl, right? The loving one, the kind one, the receptive one, the one who cares for others in my life. And me listening to my instincts, listening to my intuition, seeing the ego, calling it for what it is, at least in my heart and in my mind, and being like, you know what? No, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that for you. Because it's not, what you're saying to me doesn't sound led by soul. It sounds led by ego. And to me, this is what Lilith embodies, right? This is what Lilith mastered. And she is the guiding archetypal principle of being able to be defiant in a way that honors your inner truth, that honors your inner soul knowing. Even if someone that you love, you respect, their ego is telling you to do something different, your soul is saying, no, actually, I won't do that. And I know you're not going to understand, and I know you might demonize me and you might villainize me, but know that even in that, I still love you. And I still love myself. I love myself enough to not allow your ego to guide me anymore. And so if you don't know Lilith's story, it's essentially this. Lilith was or is mythologically Adam of Adam and Eve, Adam's first wife. Lilith was created at the same time as Adam and from the same exact clay as Adam. They were they were equals. They were equals. And they're having, sexual relations as couples do. And basically Lilith wanted to be on top. She wanted to ride Adam. And Adam wanted her to be on the bottom. And basically was like, no, you can't be on top. It's wrong for you to want to be on top. It's wrong for you to see yourself as an equal. Because you're not. I am above you, essentially, is what he said. And she said, hell no. You are twisted, sir. We were created at the same time from the same exact clay. We are equals. If I want to be on top sometimes, I want to be on top sometimes. And honestly, like what a fool of Adam. Like, why would you want her to be on top sometimes? You're an idiot. Blessings, but you're an idiot, in my humble opinion. And so yeah, this was the issue. She was literally like, no. And then in the story, God, quote unquote, written by man, God comes down, an authority figure comes down and says, actually, Lilith, you are lesser. You should listen to your husband. You have to be on the bottom. And she says, no. She says, absolutely not. She says, I'm leaving this conversation. I'm leaving this garden. I don't need this. This is not true. This is not correct for me. I'm leaving this situation. Has the guts, has the chutzpah, has the innate divine courage to say no. even when an authority figure, even when God himself comes to her and says, hey, you're wrong, she says, actually, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. And you want to know how I know? Because I feel it. In my body, in my bones, there is a truth that is undeniable that lives within me. And no matter what you say, no matter what you tell me to do, it is unavoidable. It was given to me by birth. I know better. And as women, as people, we do. We know better. We have this instinctual knowing when something is true, when something is correct, when it resonates as true. We also have a similar feeling when something resonates as false or incorrect or untrue. That's untrue. And so she basically has this instinctual knowing. She's like, I don't care who you are. No, absolutely, that's ridiculous. Absolutely not. I'm going to leave now. And then she does. And she was demonized for that. She's literally demonized for wanting and seeing herself as an equal, for listening to her instinctual nature, the intuition she was born with, that she was given, her divine right of living in her own body, knowing what is true and correct for her. This man and this false god have the audacity to come down and try to convince her out of the truth that she knows deep within. And so this is what I've been sitting with for this year and a few weeks. It's that in this realm, in this human life that we have, there is this test, I believe, that exists for all humans. Maybe most humans, maybe some humans, definitely me, maybe you as well. And it's this test of that there will be a force, that there is a force in this world that will try to convince us out of our own truth. It will do its damnedest to convince us to go against our own instinctual knowing. And to do that is essentially to kill off our own instincts. Because in order to go against our own nature, there's at the very least a compartmentalization of our intuition, of our instinctual force. I know as women, we know this feeling of knowing something is right or knowing something isn't right. And regardless, not listening to that instinctual wisdom and how deflated our life force energy becomes from making that decision once, making that decision over and over again. Like it literally zaps and steals Shakti, life force energy, power, prowess, vitality from us when we don't honor our instinctual wisdom, our instinctual knowing, what feels true and correct for us. When we, at the very least, don't make our own mistakes, when we start listening to other people instead of honoring our own wisdom from within. It steals life. And there is a force out there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just like an aspect of ego consciousness. It's just like an aspect of like human psyche, but it is a force that will try to convince you out of your own truth. And it will threaten all sorts of kinds of things. It'll threaten, the main one is not belonging. Just like Lilith, for listening to herself, for honoring herself as an equal, she was literally thrown out of the Garden of Eden. Like, you can't be here anymore because you respect yourself too much. How bizarre, but this happens all the time in our world. Like, in our world run by ego, very confused, very upside down, not soul-centric in the ways that it could be. That it is, right? Like soul, like nature is nature. But as human beings, we have free will, and sometimes we can build systems, build structures, build society, build culture that isn't based on our instincts, that isn't based on what's best for our nature. can be based on this other principle of ego, or we build a culture that's counterintuitive to the soul. And that is what Lilith was like, no, absolutely no. No, absolutely not. We don't do that. I'm not doing that. And that is what she helps us with. I do believe that there is a force out there that will gaslight you, that will lie to you to your face, either consciously or subconsciously, trying to convince you away from what you know deep in your soul. And our job is to not listen. Our job is to have so much faith in our own intuition. We say, no, actually, I'm not going to listen to you. That doesn't feel like wisdom for my soul. That doesn't feel like nourishment to my soul. I'm not going to listen to that. Even if I'm wrong, I'm going to take the risk of being wrong and honoring myself over dishonoring myself by going against something that feels innately and instinctually like a no for me. There's like a whole other conversation that we could have about consent and how every time we betray our own inner yes or our own inner no, we're literally gearing our psyche up to not know the difference between a yes or a no in our own bodies, and it makes it much harder for us to give actual consent, sexually or otherwise, because we don't know if it's a yes or we don't know if it's we don't know, but we do know, we always know, but because we haven't attuned ourselves to actually trusting and listening to our yeses and our nos, we can go for a long time not knowing the difference or being confused about the difference, and actually creating a lot of harm, a lot of non-consensual harm to our own bodies and our own psyches. It's deep. It's important. And Lilith helps. So I bring this to our attention because as we are entering this time of the year, as we're going into the underworld, we are excavating a lot of nonsense beliefs that are counterintuitive to our instinctual wisdom, to our natures, to what helps us feel alive, what helps us feel well. We are excavating a lot of cultural standards that do not honor the soul and might feel correct to us, quote unquote correct, because other people that we love, we value, they are gods, our authority. We've given them that power over us because we have these feelings for them or because of whatever. We've allowed them to define our reality for us as opposed to the instinctual system, the nature, the blueprint that already exists within us defining reality for us. Instead of our own bodies defining reality for us, we let other people define our reality for us. And Lilith, Goddess bless her. This first woman, this archetypal format of denying anyone outside of you the right to define for you what is true and correct for you. Absolutely not. No one has that authority. God himself, herself does not have that authority. And if they did, the true God, I guarantee it, or goddess, their truth would align with your truth because that's where your truth comes from. So there wouldn't be this need to defy yourself or defile yourself or betray yourself in order to listen to a God outside of you. It would match the God within you. And so these are just some of my thoughts and reflections. I hope this was helpful. Please feel free to, respond in the Facebook group, maybe journal or meditate on places in your life where you're still giving your power away. You're letting other people define what is real, what is true for you, even though they can't. They just can't. They can't. They're not in your body. They can't do that. Yeah. And any other thoughts or feelings that this has arisen for you? I would be so curious. I would love to keep this conversation going. I am planning on doing a sound healing kind of soul journey with Lilith. I'm doing that next. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And I hope you're having a lovely, lovely time in the underworld.